What if a single exam could change an entire empire? Sounds a little crazy, right? But today, we're going to travel back in time, about 1,000 years, to find out how a simple test became one of the most powerful political tools in history. Let's dive in. Now, this isn't going to be your typical history lesson. We're starting with this big question because the story we're about to uncover isn't just about passing tests. It's really about power, it's about fairness, and it's about one emperor's incredibly smart plan to hold his kingdom together.
So I want you to picture this. We're in China. It's the year 1002 during the Song dynasty. Now, this was a time of huge military threats and lots of political drama. But behind all of that, something pretty quiet was happening. Something that seemed small but was about to change everything. And it was all centered on an exam.
Our story really begins with a specific event from that year, one that leaves us with a really interesting puzzle to solve.
I want you to meet a scholar by the name of Wang Zheng. This man was brilliant. I mean, he didn't just pass his exams. He got first place in his local exam, then first place in the big ministry exam, and then, to top it all off, first place in the final exam at the emperor's palace. They called this a triple winner, and it was unbelievably rare. Think about it. In over 1,000 years, only 14 people ever did this.
So, what made Wang Zheng's victory so important? Well, it was a brand new idea, a new kind of technology called Huming. It literally just means name covering. The idea was simple but so powerful. The student's name on the exam was covered up, sealed away, so the emperor graded the test without having any idea who wrote it. This was proof that Wang Zheng won because of pure talent, not because he knew someone important.
And that right there brings us to our big puzzle. You see, the civil service exam wasn't new. It had already been around for about 400 years. So why, all of a sudden, did the government need to create all of these new, complicated rules to stop cheating? What was really going on?
To understand this, we need to look at the other new technologies the emperor introduced around this time. And of course, I'm not talking about digital tech. These were clever new rules, all designed to make the exam system totally secure.
So get this. In just a few decades, 4 huge innovations appeared. First, there was the palace exam, which made the emperor himself the final judge. Then came locking in. And yeah, it's exactly what it sounds like. Examiners were sealed inside a room until all the grading was done. Next was that name covering we just talked about. And finally, recopying. Clerks would copy every single exam by hand, so you couldn't even recognize a person's handwriting.
This leaves us with 2 big questions. First, why this sudden explosion of new rules after 400 years? And second, why would anyone create a system that judges a person only by what they write down on a piece of paper? A system that ignores their personality, their reputation, everything else about them. To get the answer, we have to look back into history. You see, the puzzle of these exams can only be solved if we understand a problem that emperors had struggled with for hundreds and hundreds of years. How do you find good, trustworthy people to help you run a giant empire? For centuries, they tried all sorts of systems. The Han Dynasty used recommendations, but you can probably guess what happened. People with powerful friends always got the jobs. Then, they tried the 9-rank system, but that just ended up creating a few super powerful families who controlled everything. Finally, the Sui and Tang dynasties introduced the first exams, which allowed the emperor to take back some control and decide for himself what a good official should be.
Now, that early exam system did help to weaken those old, powerful families. But by the time of the Song dynasty, a completely new problem had appeared, a new kind of opponent for the emperor.
The problem was this new powerful relationship that was forming inside the exam system itself. You had the examiner, the patron, and the student who passed the test. This wasn't just a friendly teacher-student thing, it was a bond of lifelong loyalty. The student felt like he owed his entire career to the examiner who passed him, not to the emperor he was supposed to be working for.
And just how deep did this loyalty go? Well, listen to this quote from a high-ranking official. He once bragged that the 30 students he passed in the exam were like 30 valuable pieces of property he owned. He didn't see them as public servants, he saw them as his personal assets. You can just imagine how an emperor would feel hearing that.
So, the emperor's new enemy wasn't some powerful noble with his own private army. It was something much more subtle. It was the high-ranking officials, the bureaucrats, who were acting like middlemen. They were getting in between the emperor and his new officials and stealing away their loyalty.
And now, finally, we can connect all the dots. All of those new exam rules, all that new technology, it wasn't really about stopping a few students from cheating, it was about solving this much bigger political problem.
So think about it for a second. We always assume that anti-cheating rules are for the students, right? But what if they weren't? What if they were really designed to control someone else, the powerful officials who were running the exams?
This is where it all clicks. Each one of those new rules had an obvious purpose, but also a hidden, real purpose. The Palace exam? On the surface, it's a final test. But the real purpose was to make every winner an emperor's student, loyal directly to him. Locking in the examiners? Sure, it stopped cheating. But more importantly, it cut them off from outside influence. And name covering and recopying? That made it impossible for examiners to pick their own friends and allies. The emperor had built a perfect machine to cut the middlemen out of the picture.
But this wasn't just a clever political trick. By trying to solve his own problem, the emperor accidentally created something revolutionary, a new system of opportunity for everyone.
Let's think about it like this. The old way was a system of other recommendation. Your success depended completely on who you knew. The power was with the people doing the recommending. But the emperor's new exam was a self-recommendation system. Suddenly, your success depended on what you could prove you knew on paper. The power shifted to the individual. All of a sudden, your family background didn't matter nearly as much as your own ability. And this change had a huge effect on real people. Take the story of Fan Zhongyan. He was a student who was so poor that he survived by cutting a block of cold porridge into 4 pieces to last him for 2 days. In the old system, someone like him would have had absolutely no chance. But in this new, fairer system, his talent was all that mattered, and he went on to become one of the most famous officials in all of Chinese history.
And even the people at the very top of society could see this shift happening. In that same year, 1002, 2 of the most powerful ministers in the government married their daughters to new exam winners, including our triple winner, Wang Xing. And when their families complained that these men weren't from rich, powerful families, the ministers just said, "You don't understand. The times have changed." They knew that proven talent was the new source of power.
And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. The Song Dynasty emperor built a system, a kind of machine, to give people a chance based on what they could do, not who they knew. It wasn't perfect, but it was a revolutionary idea. And it makes you wonder, what systems in our own world today give us that same fair chance to prove what we're really capable of? It's a good question to think about.